On this first video, we're going to bring in a guest, and this is not exactly H.V.A.C, but it's something that's extremely important in our business, and this is water and water quality. He has a really good product. His name is Mark Cooper, and he represents the Vulcan water solution. All right, Mark, you take it from here. Introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are and what you do.
Oh, good. Hello, folks. I'm Mark Cooper from Salt-Free Water Systems. Our product is the Vulcan Salt-Free Water Treatment System. We treat water by taking care of the magnesium, calcium in the water, whereby it doesn't get the opportunity it doesn't give the minerals the opportunity to stick your pipe, your equipment, your machinery, your coffee makers, whatever you use your water for. If you think about water, people don't like to think of stone as being alive. But calcium is a product that if you go into the mines, you go into the caverns, they build and they build and they build. And it might not be something that we recognize as life, but it looks to exist consistently where it's at. So it builds up in the pipes, it builds up in your equipment, it builds up in anything that it comes in contact with. Think of it like those little burrs that you get when you go into the jungle, forest, or anywhere. You come out, you get those little burrs stuck, and you're trying to figure out how do they stick to this. Well, that's what calcium does. It sticks in any material it will come in contact. It will find a way to stick. And in that sticking, the first thing it does, it builds a foundation. And once the foundation for it is built, now you have iron stick to it. Now the iron has a home, so now iron has a home. Iron, once it sticks, is porous. Then because it's now even more porous, that gives a place for the bacteria to stick and build and breed. And that's where you get the algae and all those other good things that happen in your water. It's all just a natural thing. It's nothing unnatural about it. What's unnatural is the fact that in our country is the only one in the world that allows chemicals of any sort into fresh water. We are doing that, and we're doing it to the point now that it's starting to affect the farmers. The farmers are starting to complain that they're getting water, they're getting salt in their rivers, streams, and lands with treating their products. And because now we can't grow product in salt water, now the farmers are the ones who's really pushing getting this salt eliminated out of our system. And the farmers, they're a major source. And if the food goes away, what do? It's easy for us to say salt water is great, but when we can't grow, fruits and vegetables anymore, what is the salt water going to do for us?
Just to come in here just a little bit, and part of this, we're talking about the salt and getting rid of it, and not using it as a water softener. I've done a lot of reading and looking at water softeners. We hear a lot about softened water. What Mark's equipment does in regular water, use it in your regular house. All your appliances that use water will be cleaned, and other faucets, shower heads, all of that stuff will be cleaned. It'll clean by itself. That's a real big thing. But what we're talking about really here is pure water in, pure water out. What we're trying to do here is eliminate chemicals. I'm sorry if the chemical manufacturers say, but wait, we can and you can't. That's not true. Everything that you needed to be treated in your house with chemicals can be pretty much taken care of with this. And what chemicals have to be introduced into, let's say, a well system or something else that we would treat this and say, well, we can't do that. We have to take and do this to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, the only situations that we run into when it came to the Vulcan and well water is because well water is underground. When it comes up, sometimes it gives off a smell. And the smell is just the natural smell of water with the gases that are associated with the well water.
With the well water in the ground itself.
Yes, because there's no oxygen there for it to mix with. And what we recommend customers tend to do, if it's not a commercial entity, what we recommend that they do is put on what you call a flick valve. And what a flick valve will do is as the water comes up, it'll let a little oxygen come into the water system, and it will eliminate that egg smell.
Huh?
And it disappears. And and what happens is, I don't know, when I was a kid, we would run the water, especially the hot water. We run the hot water, and it would be really cloudy. And we would always say, it has a lot of air in that water. Well, it's not the air, it was actually calcium that was built up so hard in the hot water tanks that when you poured the water, when you ran the water, it had cloudy. If you let it sit a few minutes, it would disappear. But it would disappear to the point you could barely see it anymore. But if you let it sit till it dried completely, in the bottom of the glass you see a white film. And that would be the calcium from the water, from the hot water tanks. And what happens is with the Vulcan system, it eliminates that to where now the elements in the hot water tank doesn't build up to where now that calcium is built up to the point where it's there anymore, because it runs it right through at a natural rate to where it's not there. And we know from many appliance shows and many appliance doctors that washing machines don't go bad. Hot water tanks don't go bad. What happens is the calcium builds up in that equipment, and pressure becomes so great that the seams break. And once the seams break, it's when they start to leaking. Other than that, there's no reason in the world for them to break. Same thing with your washing machine. The calcium builds up so much in your washing machine to where now the motor is having a more difficult time doing what it needs to do, because now that calcium's gotten so heavy that now it's like a big stone in the machine, so now that breaks.
Yes.
And when it comes to the Keurigs and the instant hot water system that they're putting in for people now, they're putting them in and they're saying that you need to clean these systems out. But in reality, how many people are going to think to clean that thing out every 2 years to get it cleaned, to make sure it's clean as a whistle? And if they do it, or do they have persons that has the qualifications to do it? And the Vulcan solves that problem for those customers.
Yes. Now we're talking about H.V.A.C. So here's my 2 cents worth. I just finished a job in a house that had a steam boiler that we did some work on. And I started it up to test out how it was filling the system with steam and how the system was reacting. As the boiler was sitting there, it was percolating. Anybody in our business knows exactly what I just said. Your hot water tank will percolate too. And people say, well, what's that? Well, when you listen to it, you can hear like this gurgling sound that inside your hot water tank or inside your boiler. What that is the calcium buildup on the bottom of the tank. It builds up on the inside. When the burner goes on, the burner heats the water that's mixed in and under that calcium because it's not fully attached, and it turns it into steam and boils through that, thus the percolating sound. So I put one of these, well, I didn't put it on, Mark did. Went over there and we put one on. I had drained the boiler because we were doing some other work. I was removing a hot water loop off of it, so we did some other work to drain the boiler down. And I refilled the boiler, and of course it is a steam boiler with an automatic fill, so you know that it's going to be filling itself on a regular basis. The percolating is gone. It's completely gone. And it only took one filling. I don't know what's happened inside. I'm not a magician. All I do know, it doesn't percolate. And that is something for me, having been in this business for as long as I have, and over 40 years of working on boilers. It's the first time I've ever been able to truly accomplish that. I have tried chemicals and all kinds of things, but to be honest with you, getting a percolating boiler to stop percolating, or these new on-demand water heaters, which we have in that house. Also, we have in that same house is a combi unit. So what is it doing? You know as well as I do, if you got one, it has to be flushed every 2 years, just like we're talking about the coffee machine. You can't get a company to come out and flush them. They usually wait till 5 or 7 years, and then they're coming out to sell you a new unit. How would you like to never have to call them at all? With the Vulcan on, it ends the service call. And I'm waiting to see, and so I can go through a season here, and see how the humidifier pads react with the Vulcan. Do they get as plugged? Do you get constant humidity, or is it dropping off as the season runs on because the pad is getting plugged? This thing is a great device. It's going to help in a lot of different places because, like I said, I don't know of a boiler company or these guys who are flushing these units on a every 1 to 2 year basis. Just not being done. I can't find anybody. I looked for videos, they're sketchy. I've talked to the manufacturers and say, oh, do you have a video of that? Can you show? It's like you're supposed to know. I'm sorry, but it's not widely available. We'll make a video on it eventually. But with Mark's product, you don't need a video. You don't need the buckets. You don't need to run the vinegar and all the rest of the stuff through it. You don't need to get a pump. All you need is to sit back and watch the next football game. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, we know that we've now introduced the Vulcan system to a lot of sewer systems. And I didn't realize that we had, I might be mistaken, but I think we have 28 municipal water boards in the state of Michigan. Most people think of the Great Lakes Water Board as the guy who handles everything, but in reality they don't. We got a call from one customer, and what happened was I introduced them to the Vulcan, and their response was, oh my God, if we had known that this product existed, but spoiled before we spent $100,000 replacing these coils, we would have done that. And it's like you want to help the customer, you want to give them the best advice you can. My experience in years of sales is that an educated customer is a fantastic customer because they've taken the time to learn the facts, not rumor and conjecture. So they don't base what they're thinking on something so another guy feels. And we get a lot of feelings when it comes to products and changes. A lot of times people get caught up in what's good and what's worked for 25, 30 years. And as I advised one person just a little while ago, that was on one of the blogs, I did bring his attention that if you think comfort is fine, the Commodore 64 was comfortable, it worked. Dial-up phones were comfortable, they worked. LED lights, when they first came out, everyone said that was the worst thing that's ever happened to the planet. Now that's all you can find. Because technology moves forward whether it's comfortable to you or not. So your new comfort zone is on its way. And as time goes on, the government, technology, and customers are going to let you see the comfort zone. And the person is like, if a guy sells you, if his product is stone wheels and you got pneumatic tires, he's going to tell you all the problems that are wrong with pneumatic tires because all he sells is stone wheels. And that's where we are today when it comes to a lot of the technology. People don't want to move forward because the comfort zone isn't there as of yet. But as time goes on, they reach that comfort level and they realize this is the best way to go.
Off air we had a conversation, and one of the things that we're talking about is that the fact that in this country here we do inject a lot of chemicals into our waters. That's why everybody walks around with a bottle in their hand, because the municipal water is sometimes has more chemicals in it than people want to have. This is a way of stopping all of that. You have to understand something. When you put chemicals in, some of these chemicals will stay in your body and not go away. They can accumulate in different places, and we are wondering where all the new sicknesses and things are coming out. Some of this may be self-induced unknowingly, and I'm not saying anybody is to blame here, but when I talk about heating and water, everybody knows, yes, we have that, but do you know that technically in the books, do you know that we call it sweet water? Do you know what sweet water means? Water, H2O. So all the calculations in the manuals are all made on the fact of H2O. It doesn't exist. All water that we put into our heating systems has chemicals in it. Those chemicals change the heat factor through the whole system. The more that gets involved, the more the heat factors and everything else change. Also, this stuff traveling through the system and being pumped through the system acts as a sandpaper inside the piping. So enough of it, if it stays loose, actually destroys the piping. On residentials, it plugs up these new high-tech boilers that they are fantastic. The fire tube boilers and the other ones in a similar vein, they're unbelievable. They save so much money. They're able to be turned up and turned down, but they have a Achilles heel. The Achilles heel is that the chambers in those boilers are real small now. They're stainless steel. They try to keep it that way so things don't stick to it. But if your water isn't treated properly, it will stick and plugs it up and they die. So, all right, we have given you a pretty good discussion on the Vulcan. Now here we have one with us here. This is the Vulcan instrument. This is what we've been talking about. As you can see, it has flashing lights that's telling you it's working. These are bands that are installed on the Vulcan. You start with 4 on smaller pipes, and then as the Vulcan itself increases in size physically and the pipe size increases, the bands increase in size. That's how what is that, a wave or
It's the best way I can relate it, as I've said so many times before, is you think of a singer hitting the high C and they're breaking glass. Well, this produces a sonic sound that actually breaks the calcium and magnesium up to where it doesn't have the ability to stick. It is now, instead of it being a burr, it turns it into straight lines where it passes right through, as long as it's treated by the water, by the Vulcan. And once the Vulcan is treated the water will stay treated as long as it's in the system of 5 to 7 days. Once it goes back into the natural element, it turns back into what it is naturally. And that's how it works when it comes to treating the water. It just changes the characters of the calcium and magnesium while it won't stick. And therefore what happens is, as time goes on, it forms a fine silica seal inside the pipe, which happens naturally, and that stops the pipes from pitting, which the government has determined the chemicals are now causing more pitting in pipes that they want to deal with, because the pitting is now making pinholes all throughout the piping systems, throughout the factories, throughout the industry, throughout the farmers. The average farmer spends over $100,000 a year in changing the valves, because the water is such a corrosive product that it comes through, and as it makes a turn, it's eating the valves in the systems, and that's causing them a lot of money just to maintain the water coming back and forth through their systems.
Yeah, that's true in a lot of different industries. I can attest to that, even in the oil drilling industry and other places that use a lot of water. So this on a industry, for example, let's say you have an apartment complex, a bunch of different buildings, maybe 200-300 apartments. How many shower heads do you have? Faucets, toilets, dishwashers, and complaints. I would say about 80 to 90% of the complaints can be solved by one of these things put in and treating that water so that things don't get plugged up and things work. Would you say that would be a true statement?
That's a very true statement, very accurate, in that we put them into the shower heads. In a lot of these higher end hotels, the shower heads can cost $400 and $500 a piece, and we put them in an exclusive resort in Traverse City, and they were paying $650 a piece for shower heads. We put them in, and now they haven't changed them in over 2 years. The shower heads are fine. They're not plugged, they're not plug scaling, looking all nasty. So when the customers are in the showers, they're looking fine and doing what they're supposed to do.
I know that sometimes that when you see and hear products and you say to yourself, wow, this is really good, but it's got to be a gimmick or something else. Have you, we talked about how long has this unit been in the United States and in use?
The Vulcan has been in the United States going on 15 years. We're finally showing our footing. But the Vulcan has been in the rest of the world for over 50 years. And it's in 71 countries that use exclusively the Vulcan in high-end resorts. We're in some of the most exclusive places in the world, and the only product they use is the Vulcan to treat their water.
On the last part here, and sort of to wind things up, there are a few things that we wanted to bring up on this. I will bring up one, and I'm going to let Mark talk about the other. The one I'm going to bring up is the fact is, we don't care what kind of pipe that you have in your system, whether it's metal, copper, plastic, cement, it'll work. This system will work. Excuse me, I got a cough. Don't have a cough button. This system will work on any type of piping that you have in your factory, your plant, whatever. We have results that are turned out very good in what we've already done. But Mark, this is not something, this is different product, okay? If somebody says that you call up another water softener company and says, yeah, we have a salt-free water solution, no one has this. And explain that, Mark.
Well, the Vulcan system is a product that's out of Germany, and we're the exclusive distributors of the Vulcan product. We have a few representatives in the U.S., probably 15, 20 representatives of the Vulcan system in the U.S., but we all have territories, and we cover our territories. And if you buy a Vulcan unit, we all know from each other what's going on. It's a very close-knit community. We all know what's taking place. And a lot of times, people want to say they have something that'll do this, but in reality they don't. And the government has given the Vulcan and one other company, one other product in the country, a title for this. They call it electrochemical water treatment solutions. And their studies have determined that this system is as more efficient than any other system on the market as far as chemicals, salts, whatever solutions people are using nowadays is just as efficient and a much greener product to take care of the environment. And when they came with the electrochemical solution, it took them about 5 to 6 years to do their study. And this came out last year. And when they came out with it, it was there. We're part of it. We're happy to be a part of that study. And we're happy that they let us be included with this other company that's doing it. But the problem is the other company is used mostly in militaries, so it's got a different, I'd say, baseline as far as you're looking for the product to go, because they've gotten their market, and the customers and factories and institutions and homes and residential is not something that they seek. That's not something they want or seek. So as far as when it comes to Vulcan, we're the company who's looking to branch out into those areas. Even though we do have military institutions, we are here for the customer. So if someone says from H.V.A.C. water company, we have it, rest assured they don't.
They don't.
And they can always have a solution, but the solution is not going to be the Vulcan.
It's going to be chemically based.
It's going to be chemically based.
Or filter based.
Well, chemicals and filters, and one way or another, it's not going to solve the solution the way you want it to be. That even with the chemicals and salts nowadays, you still got your hot water tanks plugging up. You still got your pipes building up. You still have in your boilers and heat exchangers and cooling towers, you still have those solutions that are there that is going to require chemicals. When it comes to a cooling tower, anyone who has a cooling tower knows how expensive it is to clean one. And the calcium and magnesium builds up on those things. And again, you get the green algae. Green algae is our favorite thing, which is called Legionnaires. And a lot of people don't want to accept that it's Legionnaires in their cooling towers. Yes, sir.